Good morning, everyone. I am Councilman Robert Stokes, Chair of the Education, Workforce, and Youth Committee. I just want to acknowledge committee members who are here. Councilman Zeke Cohen from the 1st District. Councilman Cohen. Okay, we'll come back.
Hey, I'm here. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, having a mute issue.
Councilwoman Felicia Porter from the 10th District.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
Council Vice President Middleton from the 6th District.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Bullock from the 9th District.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Nina Themlis from the Mayor's Office. From the President's Office, we have Nikki Thompson from President Mosley's office.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Marguerite Kern, who does a great job here, who chairs this committee, the staff person.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
This is a legislative oversight hearing, Office of Employment Development Youthworks program, for the purpose of holding hearings to receive updates from the Office of Employment Development regarding workforce development strategies for Baltimore City. I know how important it is for our Youthworks, our summer program, and getting our young people involved. And and me and Council Vice President always talk about the apprenticeship training, because we know that a lot of our young people not going to have the opportunity to go to college, or it's expensive, or the parents can't, afford it. So we have to open those opportunities up for apprenticeship training, and what better way than do it through Youthworks to get that hands-on kind of training. So I'm now going to turn this hearing over to Director Perkins Cohen and ask him to introduce his team.
Thank you, Chairman Stokes and members of the committee. My name is Jason Perkins Cohen. I'm the Director of the Mayor's Office of Employment Development. I am thrilled to be here with you all today and to have this conversation. It comes at a perfect time with Youthworks open for business. It's always open for business, but especially this time of year. And I do want to just briefly introduce my team of leaders. We have Donise Brown, who actually I'll go ahead and let Donise and Rashim introduce themselves. Go ahead, Donise.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Donise Brown. I'm the Assistant Director, Chief of Youth Services for the Mayor's Office of Employment Development.
Hi, I'm Rashim. I am the Program Manager for Youthworks.
That's all we have with us today, Mr. Chairman. But there's
Okay.
lots of people behind the scenes that are working hard on this program.
You didn't bring the whole army with you today. I guess you didn't need it. Thank you.
Well, we want them to be working with young adults. So, but they're with us in spirit.
So what we want to do, I know Director Cohen, you wanted to do your presentation. Okay, Ms. Margaret.
Yes, sir.
She has given you sharing rights.
Okay, well then I will call it up. Are you all able to see that? Oops,
I think it's loading.
there we go. Does that work?
Yes.
Yeah, I will turn it into a slideshow now. Great. Okay, well, I'm going to go kick it off, but I'm going to turn it right back over to Donise and Rashim in just a moment. And again, this is Youthworks 2022. As you can see, these are all real photos. These are not stock photos of our youth workers from past. I'm not going to read the slides to you guys, or none of us are going to. I know you don't really want that. You want us to really describe what's really going on. And again, I'm just going to give a super brief overview. We're the city's workforce agency. Youthworks is obviously not the only thing we do. It is what we're talking about this morning. Youthworks has been around for several decades, and it's been around long enough where it's been called, had previous names in previous decades, but it's been around long enough where many of the young adults we served are, I think it's okay to say, no longer young adults, and they have lots of leadership roles across our city. We use the phrase that summer jobs launches careers, and we're now at a place where we can say that with absolute certainty. You see our mission and our vision. I just want to say before Donise takes over and we sort of launch into this year's Youthworks and talk a bit about last year, just to give you the big picture, you know, mentioning that Youthworks has been around for so long. I think I worry at times, and I don't mean this of the council, but that you know, we don't always appreciate what we have. And you know, our program in Baltimore is one of the largest in the nation. I was just with a foundation rep, a national foundation rep, who talked about us as, you know, best in class yesterday. It's, you know, Chairman Stokes, I appreciate your opening comments about how important it is for young Baltimoreans. You know, when you have a program for 8,000 and almost all of them come on our payroll, it makes us one of the 5 largest employers of any kind in our city. And the difference between us and Hopkins and the University of Maryland, that are the other largest employers, is that we restart every year. You know, we enroll young people this time of year, we bring them onto payroll. And again, Rashim and Donise and their team are responsible for all that. And that's it's a significant behind the scenes task. And again, we often talk about the importance in our city of having programs to scale, right? We've got lots of initiatives. What's really at scale? Youthworks is by far the largest employment program of any kind in our city or in our state. And if you add up all the other jurisdictions' summer programs, they would be less than Youthworks of Baltimore. If you're a football fan and you look at the other teams in the Ravens division and you added them up, they would be less than what we have in Baltimore. So the size is immense and incredibly important to be supporting that many young adults and help them in their future. And the other last thing I'll point out about it is it's an economic transfer of resources, which is really important. And so again, these are jobs, these are not giveaways. And if this summer, if as expected, we're able to place 8,000 young adults in a job starting July 5th and they go to work, in the first hour of work between 9, when the clock strikes 10, assuming they all start work at 9, we will have spent $100,000 in youth wages. That is a transfer to young Baltimore of incredible importance to them and their families. And of course, by the end of that first day, we'll have spent $500,000. And we view this as really an investment in young Baltimore, and a really, really important one that our city takes on every year. So I'm grateful that we have always had the support of the council and the mayor and many other elected officials and key stakeholders in our city. This is truly something we do in partnership, and look forward to the conversation today. With that, I will pass it over. I think I'm passing over to Donnie, I'm passing over to you, or is this still is you? Okay.
No, it's to me. Thank you so much, Jason, for laying a powerful foundation for what we're explaining today. This slide just talks about the eligibility and program structure as it relates to Youthworks. Youthworks is a program that's for Baltimore City residents, young adults between the ages of 14 and 21. We're offering a 5-week program this year that's going to run from July 5th to August the 5th. They have an opportunity to work up to 5 hours a day, 25 hours per week. Of course, in order to assist with the transportation issues or challenges that might exist, they are eligible to obtain an MTA charm card through Youthworks. And of course, they will be paid in the minimum wage, which is $12.50 per hour. Next slide. And of course, we wanted to make sure that throughout the presentation, you will see the web link for Youthworks, which is youthworks.oedworks.com. And not only is this for the online registration portal, but it's also the way that work sites can apply to be a Youthworks location to host some of our Baltimore City young adults. A couple of dates that we want you to remember, and it's important that we encourage everyone to adhere to these deadlines. April 1st, we're asking that all youth register. We started the registration process in January, so we give them a couple of months in order to get their information in, upload their documents, and for us to have some dialogue back and forth if things aren't uploaded correctly or missing. Because our goal is to make sure that every youth who applies for a summer employment opportunity has that opportunity to work during the summer. Again, I'll mention that Youthworks will run during the months of July to August, 5 to 5, July 5th to August the 5th. We want to remind organizations and employers that they have up until April the 1st to become a work site to host young adults and a wonderful work experience that they can offer. This year, it's our hope to have a job fair, and that will be targeted towards invited 14 to 15-year-olds that have pre-registered for Youthworks. And our job fair target date is May 14th, 2022. We cannot do what we do, not only as an agency, but as a city, if we don't have partners available to support our mission. So with Youthworks, we really work towards leveraging funds from many organizations, local and national foundations, to provide the money that we need in order to provide these experiences to young adults from the public and private sector. You know, we have so many homegrown areas that support our efforts, which include the Harry and Jeanette Weinberg Foundation, of course, Annie E. Casey Foundation, JP Morgan, and Bank of America. Worksite partners do include local nonprofits, the private sector, community and faith-based organizations, as well as our city and state agencies are very strong supporters of this mayor's initiative. And what is a program without having successes? We have so many success stories from our participants who are in Youthworks, but we just wanted to share a few with you today. The young person that's shown on this slide is an alumna of Youthworks, Adonna Robinson. She's employed at the Maryland Transportation Administration, but she started with the Department of General Services through Youthworks. So through that experience, she was able to learn the value of work ethic and learn the importance of identifying a career and attending work every day. And you can see on the slide that she has a statement of what Youthworks meant to her. Another success story we'd like to share is Khalil Taylor, who's a student at Connections High School. And, you know, it's always not about the traditional 9 to 5 job where you're in an office. We have a lot of young people that have a lot of creative ideas and want to go into other areas. So his Youthworks experience was an art project with the Park Heights Renaissance, and he was able to cultivate and nurture his interest in the area of art and allow people to see how creative he can be. Next success story. Another one is Lourdes Bird, and she was hired through the private sector in 2015, and she's worked at various locations, including University of Maryland, ABS Capital, and Whiting Turner. So, you know, we have many participants in the program that are continuous, that register every year to take advantage of the wonderful opportunities that can be shared with them through Youthworks. And the last success story that I'd like to share is Amiris Medina, who is a Polytechnic student that graduates in 2022. And again, she worked with art with a heart during her Youthworks summer jobs experience. And she can see right here in the slide in her quote how impactful it was to her. And at this time, I will hand off the presentation to Rashim, who's the program manager for Youthworks.
So here, it just basically gives a really good overview, and this is really just from most recently last year of exactly who are our youth workers on a race, gender, and age demographic. So largely African American or Black population with over 90%, a really close to half of our youth, this is their first time. So you see a lot of folks there, 14 and 15-year-olds make up about 41% or made up about 41% last year, and the male female ratio stays at about almost about 50%. Here, this is just an overview of the city, of course, and each one of those dots represent a set of youth that works in that area. So this shows not only where the youth works, but how many youth are employed in those particular areas. And in the next upcoming slide, it gives more neighborhood specific information. So here you see the darker colored hue is where it's largely populated. And then as it gets toward the lighter color, it's less populated there. And those spots where you see where it's green are areas and neighborhoods wherein it is above average. Youth employment is above average. And then in the other areas, of course, where it's lighter, it's just a little bit less. And this is specifically from ages 16 to 19, and this demographic or this mapping is showing for 2019. Some of the things that we have in store this year that we recently started from last year in terms of how we're enhancing this work experience, because not only are they getting opportunities to be employed and feeding the goal of economic justice, they're also learning about financial literacy. They're having live Q&A sessions. They're learning about careers. So we have Facebook Lives where we reach out to youth on a platform, or Facebook, as well as Instagram and YouTube, where we regularly communicate with you. And our Young Money Mentors is a peer-to-peer financial literacy workshop, so to speak, that takes place every Monday during the summer around 1. And Bright Future Fridays is a focus on college and career readiness to talk to youth about what are their interests for the future, and it explores different tracks. In those sessions, we have professionals come on that are working in those fields. Those are coupled by institutions of higher education that are also providing degrees that are similar to the guest or the career that we have brought on. Youth participate by asking questions in the chat, and they can ask in real time, what is it like being a construction worker? How long was it hard? Did you prefer this to this? And they ask all sorts of questions like that. New for 2022. Within one of the things that Jason shared earlier is that there's Youthworks, and then there's all of these programs, and we're always looking for ways to enhance the experience and also engage youth more. And one of the things that we're focusing on being really intentional about is youth leadership development. They're youth now, but they are the future leaders. So one of the things that we are doing is we are engaging them as leaders right now. That is with the creation of our Youth Advisory Council. So we have a set of 10 youth that we employ, and they advise us. We listen to their voices. They share youth perspectives. They also do quite a bit of the work in terms of outreach and communication, and they will host and interview those Young Money Mentor conversations and the Bright Future Friday conversations. And they are our thought leaders. They are our thought leaders when it comes to youth, and letting us know kind of best practices or giving their advice and input. Youthworks Academy is also a new initiative. It will launch this year in a few weeks. And Youthworks Academy was designed as not only leadership development, but job readiness prep, right? So this is this particular program starts a bit before the summer starts, and it is engaging youth before the summer actually starts. So they are working after school, and it's about 10 hours. I think 10 hours is the max hours that youth are able to participate in it. But they really what that really focuses on is job readiness skills. The goal for that is that once they are done with that program, by the time the summer starts, then they transition into private sector jobs. And they are among the first to be placed in our private sector jobs with those partners because they have had this training, this development as professionals. Youthworks private sector, it largely works with, of course, our youth between the ages of 16 and 21. We find employment with youth for the private sector in the summer. And that program that I talked about before on the other slide of Youthworks Academy is connected to this particular program. So we've had private sector for some time, and we would just largely engage youth during that time. And some of the feedback that we have been getting is that it would be helpful for youth to be able to have more development, for them to engage more, and also youth want to work more. So this is, those two initiatives are connected in that way. Employer highlight. We could not do the work that we do without our employers and, of course, as Denise mentioned earlier, our partners. This is one of our employers that we wanted to highlight. She's the executive director of Women in Transition. Now, their mission is to assist young women with transition out of foster care successfully. And she herself has been a foster parent. One of the things that's really helpful about our partners and the folks that we engage with in the work sites is they are in the community, they are a part of a community. And some of the works that they're doing when the youth go to their site, they're not only helping them with employment, but a lot of times youth are getting mentors and access to folks that live right there in their very own neighborhood. And this is just one of the folks that we wanted to highlight. And this is how to contact us. And we're ready for questions, I believe. Yep.
Vice President Middleton, Mr. Chairman Stowe stepped away. Can you take over the meeting right now? Thank you. He'll be back momentarily. Councilwoman Middleton.
I guess I'll start. Thank you, Marguerite. Been a very strong supporter of Youthworks, and thank you all for just really taking care of our young people, especially when school is in recess, and we know that our young people today really need enrichment things and encouragement and initiatives just to keep them going and keep their minds functioning. And just can't say enough about the program. And Director Perkins Cohen, you have just been a staunch leader in that. I know that at least before the pandemic started, council members were strongly participating as well. I have one question. So, I know that, you're getting a lot of private and just different people, businesses participating. Does the school system participate? Do principals, hire youth workers, and are there programs right within the school system to, because there are students that might want to be potential teachers and things like that, just to kind of, is there an outreach there?
Absolutely. I will say that they do actually provide some resources to actually host some young adults themselves. And many of them a number of them are sites. And we're actually hoping to expand that partnership this summer. I don't know if Rashim, if you want to jump in, feel free.
Just to add to that, there's a multitude of ways in which the schools support and participate. One, they help us to get the word out. In a lot of cases, they are our first contact and engagement with the youth. They also are engaging by being a site. Recently, last year, we started a partnership wherein we're able to set up a situation wherein youth did not have to choose between summer school and summer employment. So there's this credit recovery programming where youth can sign up through Youthworks and they can go to summer school and still receive employment. That requires those teachers to sign off on their timesheets and make sure that they show up. We also partner with the schools a lot of times on job readiness training and workshops, and as well as in-person job fairs and that sort of thing.
All right, thank you.
And I think the other thing I'd like to add is in the past when there have been special projects taking place where if you have people that are part of the robotics team and wanted to try to parlay that into a summer job work experience so the students can continue that momentum, they've served as work sites and the students have been able to continue to that work during the summer.
Yeah, I know you mentioned that they have a strong program over there at Poly Western with the robotics as well. Thank you for that. And I see that our chairman is back. Chairman, you're on.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. I'd like to acknowledge Councilman Torrance, who is a member of the committee from the 7th District.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And I also, Sophia, and I'm not going to chop her name up. I'll let her say her last name from Mayor Scott's office also.
Sophia Gabriel. Thank you, Chairman.
I just have two questions. What we're going to do is each committee members will get two questions. Excuse me, two questions, and we're going to do that'll be the first round and two more after the second round. So my first question is, before we start, your presentation that you just presented, can you send it to, it must have been updated because we don't have all that information in the packet that was sent first time.
Sure. My apologies. We will, when this is over, we'll send it to Marguerite.
Okay, thank you. Can you talk about Moed's plan for $30 million ARPA funding you received and how that will work toward expanding Youthworks? And what are the long-term plans for maintaining that level of investment?
Thank you for the question, Chairman Stokes. So the ARPA or the Recovery Act dollar investment, which you reference as 30 million, a considerable amount of that is, there's a portion of that for Youthworks, but there's a considerable amount that's not connected to Youthworks. It's on the adult side. I'll just talk a little bit about the Youthworks side, but obviously happy to take other questions on the non-Youthworks side. And I can show a graphic if it's helpful around everything we're doing if you want me
Sure,
to.
Jason, can you also mention how much of that money is going towards Youthworks?
Sure.
So you say the separation.
Yeah. Approximately $4 million of the money is going to Youthworks, which will fund approximately 2,000 slots. And part of some of the presentation that we gave when Rashim, for example, talked about Youthworks Academy and Youth Advisory Council, those initiatives, we're paying youth. I mean, that their job starts early, essentially. And so some of the resources are being used for those two initiatives. The rest of it is being used for traditional summer jobs. And again, overwhelming cost of Youthworks is youth wages, as it should be. It's a good thing. In terms of, I think one thing that's important to note, right? So as the minimum wage increases every year, and we, just to be clear, we think that's a great thing. We are, as a workforce agency, very supportive of increased minimum wages. But given that the minimum wage increases directly impact the cost of the program, that has presented some challenges because our funding has not gone up with the minimum wage increases. In fact, I don't think there's a single funder that has tied those two together. So if there's a $1 increase in the minimum wage, and we're serving 8,000 youth for 125 hours, if you just sort of just do the back of the envelope cost on that, that's roughly $1 million and in additional costs. So we have been no, we have not been fortunate. Let me strike that phrase. When the pandemic hit, when many cities canceled their programs entirely, Youthworks, again, under the leaders that you have met and Mr. Dorsey, who retired, stood strong and maintained our program. But the number of youth that were open to work in a pandemic and the number of slots that we could run in a pandemic decreased. And what's essentially happening is because of that, now that we're in 2022 and the minimum wage has gone up again, we're having to use the resources to keep up with those minimum wage increases. So that's why our goal is still 8,000. And in terms of sustainability, I think it's a great question. I think we're fortunate to have several years of funding from the Recovery Act. But at the end of the day, if the city is really committed to a program of this size, and I hope that we are, you know, we're going to have to get more additional resources in the budget. I mean, I'm not talking about this summer or even next summer. I'm talking about beyond that because, you know, there's only but so many places to raise money. And we may be, you all would know better, but we may be the only program in the city government, led by city government, in which we raise well over 50% of our budget for outside city government sources. So we're committed to doing that. We're not complaining. We will keep at it to make sure that every young person has the opportunity to work. But again, with the increases, at some point, we're gonna need more support from the city budget. I know things are tight, but there's no way around it.
So real quick, just a follow-up. You're saying even with this, only 4 million of the 30 million, that's a big difference. And only 4 million going towards Youthworks. Is that who, well, the question is, who decided only 4 million of it going to Youthworks? See, we talk about helping our young people, not just in the summertime, but programs during the winter. And we only have 4 million for summer out of 30 million. The math
Yeah.
don't seem
Well-
to add up right for me. You talking about another $26 million, and what is that being used for Youthworks? I know you said adults, but the
Yeah.
emphasis has been on a lot of youth programs and having youth get that experience, and we only using 4 million of the 30 million.
Yeah. Well, I would, a couple of things I would say on that. So, and again, I'm happy to, if you want me to share my screen, I can show a graphic that shows where the resources are going or the different initiatives.
No, you don't have to do that. You can
One
just,
thing, yeah. So 4 million is a lot. I mean, I know if you put it and you say out of 30 million, it doesn't sound as much. But one thing that is tricky in doing this with the Recovery Act dollars is it has to be used for individuals that were impacted by COVID. And we
okay.
have to be able to document that. So that's why, I know in many other jurisdictions, I don't think most are using the resources for their summer jobs programs because it's a little trickier. Obviously, you're typically not talking about a young person that lost their job due to COVID because they're more than likely in school. So we're able to make that work for this number of youth, but again, it's critical dollars, and we think that it'll be. We'll sort of see this summer how it goes. But last year, 100% of the youth that completed the process were able to offer a job. We may very well be there again this year, and we'll see, and we can adjust as needed for next summer.
Okay, and my second question is, youth that identify as LGBTQ are at high risk of experiencing homelessness, and these youth are also unrepresented in Youthworks participation. What steps is Moed taking to engage these young people, specifically trans and non-binary youth, in the Youthworks Academy?
It's a great question, and I would just say that the information that we shared is self-disclosed. So, and we acknowledge really not necessarily knowing. It's not a young person or in any program of ours they don't need to disclose, and we don't ask them beyond that form. So I wouldn't necessarily say that that is an accurate representation. And Youthworks is truly open to everyone. So when a person goes online, again, because we are virtual, we are not seeing the individual. So any young person can go online, click on the button, complete their applications, submit their documents, and again, 100% of those that did so last year were offered a job. Their status had no impact on that. We hope we're the same this year. We'll see how the numbers look in the summer. But certainly there's nothing that we would do, this is a blind, in some ways, blind application process. I don't know if Rashim or Denise, you feel free to jump in if you have thoughts.
I would just echo some of what you were saying in terms of we don't ask that they disclose, similar to when on the adult side, we don't ask them to disclose that information. So it's not something that we track.
Okay, just as a follow-up, how is Moed working with employers to ensure that youth are working in exclusive environments? Kind of somebody.
Yeah, that's another good one. So we do have staff that work directly with employers to make sure, first of all, to have employers participate in the program. But then beyond that, there is an application process that we review on the employer side. It's the same website that Dunny shared. And instead of clicking the youth button, you click the employer or worksite button. They, in air quotes here, apply. So we do get their information on on the activities that the young person will be engaging in. And we're fortunate to not have many examples of where we have found an issue, but when there is an issue, we either hear about it from the youth directly, our family member, or our staff who goes on site to visit. And if there's an issue, we have that conversation, and we have shut down sites when we've had to. It's
Well,
not, it's rare, but we can do it.
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge Councilman Conway from the 4th District also.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilwoman Vice President Middleton, I know you had some questions earlier, so we're gonna.
Correct. Yeah, I have no more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
I'm gonna go over to Councilwoman Felicia Porter from the 10th District. You have any questions? Okay, Councilwoman Porter. Okay, we'll come back to her. Councilman Bullock from the 9th District.
No questions at this point.
Councilman Cohen from the 1st District.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Jason and team, for the work that you all do. And I appreciate the continued partnership over the years. Looking forward to working on the Digital Navigators program with you all soon. Was wondering if you could talk a little bit about sort of pipelines and how we think about where our workforce is expanding, where there's sort of opportunity, not just for, Youthworks jobs. Obviously, we all love Youthworks jobs for kids that are in high school, but as we think more longer term about career paths and sort of the evolution of our city, could you talk a bit about where there's potential for growth and what Moed is doing to facilitate those types of partnerships?
Thanks, Councilman Cohen. So, and I appreciate the question because it allows us to talk about how Youthworks fits into our broader work, right? So again, acknowledging how incredibly important it is for young adults starting at age 14 to go to work, earn a paycheck, develop their skills, build their resume, et cetera. We are fully acknowledge that as important as that is not sufficient. And so a couple of ways that this fits into our broader work, and you're probably aware of an initiative called Grads to Careers, which is a partnership with the school system in which, and I'm going to turn that over to Denise in just a half second, but it targets high school seniors who are not planning to go to college. And I'll let Denise talk about that in a little bit more detail. And then, we did reference the Recovery Act dollars, and what it will be happening very, very soon is an announcement, both that we're expanding our partnership with Grads to Careers so that young adults can acquire the occupational skills they need. But then there's separate funding for additional job training that will be free to young adults and not young adults. It'll be the largest investment the city's ever made. So it'll be 17 different initiatives. These programs will not only be funded to provide job training, but we're funding legal services as support, behavioral health services as support, financial empowerment, and transportation. So let me pass it back to Denise to talk a little bit more about Grads to Careers, and then I'll loop it back one more time.
Sure, I'll be glad to. With our Grads to Careers program, we partner with Baltimore City Public Schools, Baltimore Promise, as well as the Mayor's Office of Employment Development. And we use our Workforce Innovations Opportunity Act, WIOA funds, in order to allow recent graduates from the school system to explore different career opportunities based on the providers that we have. Currently, we're offering training in the area of healthcare. Some of the organizations are doing HVAC training, biotech, as well as Home Builders Institute. So there's a menu of occupational skills training that they can benefit from. We do work with the school system in order to identify those recent graduates that have not made a firm decision or on their next step. And also with the Grads to Careers model that they have, they start going in there the senior year to share information about the occupational skills training providers that they could possibly explore additional opportunities with. And we have wonderful wraparound services that include an advocate, mental health services, and legal support services as well.
And the last point I'll make, just again, talking about where the gaps lie, our hope for the fall, and we're in constant contact with the school system and particularly focus on youth that are in career and technical education programs, is that we would be able to use some dollars to begin to fund paid internships as early as the fall of next year. That, because again, whether we call it year-round Youthworks or we call it something else, we fully know that youth need to be supported, yes, in the summer, but at other points in the year too.
Yeah, thank you for that. Really excited about the year-long Youthworks. We did a resolution about it a couple of years ago, and glad to see it come into fruition. And again, appreciate the partnership. Did want to ask like a little more specifically though, as we think about kind of where Baltimore is both geographically and economically positioned in terms of like cybersecurity and logistics and transportation and the port and all that. Could you just talk a little bit more? I love the Grads to Careers program, but just about partnerships with emerging industries where we know over the next 10, 20 years, there will be, family sustaining jobs that are going to be created and someone's going to need to fill them. And I'm hoping it's going to be, young people from our city. So can you talk a little bit about sort of that?
Sure. So we, again, thinking a bit more broadly than our youth team, we have a workforce development board chaired by a senior HR rep from Johns Hopkins. Her name is Yariella Kerr-Donovan. And as part of that board's work, we do an economic analysis. We're using U.S. Department of Labor data, Bureau of Labor Statistics to map out, the best data available. And I'm not suggesting that it's perfect, where the good jobs are defined by wages and wage progression opportunities. And we set that as our course for the industries that we're going to pursue most heavily. So we don't typically turn down an employer who needs a worker, but in terms of where we're spending our resources, our job development resources, we're using that data as a target. And then we're going back and, working with the school system. That is an active part of our board as well, and co-chairs our youth committee, to align that strategy with all the work we're doing on the youth side. So for example, IT, just to pick that as which includes cybersecurity, which is clearly a growing industry, and I think we all would believe and know is not going away, and has huge opportunity for expansion, is also something that is of real interest to many young adults, certainly not every young adult, is something we're partnering with the school system to develop that pathway. And again, we are a piece of the puzzle and a really important piece of the puzzle, but we don't want to do it alone. We want to be working in concert with the school system. So we have, they've developed, which we are active members of, a team that is building that pathway out from the school using Youthworks, and then beyond into some of those pathways. I'm happy to share the data we have in terms of, again, the Bureau of Labor Statistics data for our area that points us to where we're targeting, and some of that work that's more granular and in the weeds about how you develop that pipeline.
Great, thank you, appreciate it. Thanks.
Councilman, can you want to summarize that request so we can give it to Ms. Marguerite?
Yeah, so I'd say some data about where we're seeing potential career and job growth, and how we are proactively reaching out to employers in partnership, as you mentioned, Jason, with our school system and others, CTE, but where we're seeing potential for growth and how we're connecting and creating pipelines.
Thank you. I also acknowledge Councilman Glover from the 13th District, member of the committee.
Sure.
Councilman Torrance from the 7th District. Council, you have any questions?
No, sir. My colleague from the 1st District beat me to the questions about linking Youthworks to the broader work for our individuals 18 through 21. So I'm happy to hear the answer. So I yield back to you, sir.
Thank you. Councilman Glover, you have any questions?
Not at the moment, sir. Thank you.
Okay. I know Councilwoman Porter was on here. I don't see her anymore. So I just have a additional questions. How many youth work participants identify as foster youth or youth experiencing homelessness? And what have you seen as the biggest barrier for employment?
Thanks for that question. What we do, Councilman Stokes, and I'm glad you asked it, because it's an important feature of the program that we didn't bring up, which is we are unique compared to many of our other cities in the country, in that because equity is our frame, we prioritize youth who we think are most who would benefit most from a job. And so what that means is, in practice, is we take the list of youth that have gone through the process that we have, that have gone through the website that we shared with you earlier, and we work with our Department of Social Services, and every youth that is in the foster care system, every youth that is in a family that receives temporary cash assistance, every youth that is in a family that receives SNAP benefits, or sometimes referred to as food stamps, they are priority one. And I know that in the time that I've been part of the agency, 100% of them are offered a job. And to help make sure that they have opportunities, we don't wait for them to seek us out. So we work with social services, who essentially puts us in front of young adults and their families who are in the foster care system, to help them give a little extra attention, to help them complete the process. We'll do that again this year. I know that in years past, if you add up those percentages of foster youth, TCA families, and SNAP families, we can get in the sort of the neighborhood of 40% of our job offers are to youth in those again, it's 100% of those complete, but 40% of the total end up being in one of those characteristics. I don't know, Rashim or Denise, if you have, please, always jump in to add if you have it.
No, I think you covered it.
Yeah, I would definitely say you covered it in terms of that is an integral practice that we have within the organization in terms of priority placement. While you were talking, I was trying to see if I could get someone to just send me over the numbers because I heard you ask for particular numbers. So I was trying to see if I could get those to you, and if we can, then maybe we'll send them over after with the updated PowerPoint.
Thank you. And my other question, I know, Jason, we talked about some of the money of the 30 million being used for COVID. So my question is, what health and safety precautions are Moed implementing to ensure that the Youthworks program participants are working in a safe, healthy environment during the global pandemic?
Yeah, that's critical. So what we did the last 2 years in an abundance of caution, first of all, is just in the process. It used to be way back when in 2019, all of our sessions, we had sessions every day of the week, and then on Saturdays in the weekends, where youth could come in to complete their registration. And for health and safety reasons, we don't do that anymore. We do it virtually, but we still know that because of the digital divide, there are youth and families that need more individualized assistance. So what we have done in the past, what we know we'll do in the future, and we'll announce some time frame for this as it gets closer, is we literally put up a tent outside in our parking lot between our youth services building and another building that we have, and invite youth who need additional assistance to complete the process to meet us in the tent. And it just shows you the dedication of staff that we will do what we need to do to be as inclusive as we can. So that's sort of step one. Step two, in terms of the jobs themselves, out of an abundance of caution, in 2020, there were no in-person sites. So everything was virtual. So, health and safety at a work site at least was kind of taken care of. Last year, there were relatively few. We, again, being cautious, didn't shut it down completely, but we're wanted to be as safe as we could be, and therefore, great majority of youth were not in person. This summer, we are anticipating an in-person, largely in-person summer experience. We know youth want to work in person. We know many of our employers are open in person and need the support. And so as part of our process, we are asking work sites, making clear that they need to follow the city practices for that relate to all of our employees, whether they're Youthworks or not. To the extent that we have a mask mandate in place, the city does. They will need to follow that and be assured that they're following that and provide youth with a mask, et cetera, if needed.
Thank you, sir. One other question. I was watching the Port of Baltimore, how it's growing, and it's one of the best ports in the country. About 2 years ago, I went down to the port because what people call squeegee kids, I call them intersection entrepreneurs. That's what I call them. I think that's a better word for them because some of it has some negative stuff to it. And I actually was down there for 2 hours because I looked at if our young kids want to wash windows and they can help bring those vehicles off the shipments. And navigating that was so tough because the Homeland Security is involved in it. I would like to maybe me and you go back down again and see how we can somehow get our young people involved in that whole port, because there's a lot of opportunities for them. We can kind of do your office, you can screen them, and then they need to be, and that goes back to not going to college, but that port with all the money that's making, we need to start having some conversations with the director down there, how we can work closely with the port and our young people in your office, Jason, if that's possible.
Yeah, that'd be great. We would love that support. We do work closely with the city's Office of Children and Families to support young adults that they work with, including those that, at different times may use a squeegee to help earn some money, and to make sure that they have summer job opportunities and they are another priority group. And to, again, working a bit more intensively with them to make sure that they can complete the process. But look, we would love to have more access to port jobs for young residents. There are some security requirements they have in place that make it difficult, but we'd love to consider that.
Sure. Okay. Council Vice President Milton, do you have any questions? This is our second round.
Just to add what you mentioned about the port, and I know Councilman Cohen and I have talk about the port a lot, but I being affiliated with MACO, and we had a retreat here, and we had visitors that from the private businesses that have been around that port for close to 100 years. They are in desperate need, and they put that out there. They're in desperate need of career, trying to attract career-oriented people. Really some good jobs, good paying jobs right out of high school, and they do training. So kind of, I guess, really look up and partner with those companies that have been around that port for many, many years. They're in desperate need. I guess we're in an era of changeover where they had a lot of retirees or people moved on, and there are a lot of jobs available. I don't know if Councilman Cohen wants to add to that a lot of that area is part of his district. But I'll stop there. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, if I can just say, we should have said this earlier, we would love the council's help. We can give you, if you want to blast to your district, we know you guys are talking to residents all day long and employers, and we would love to give you the material to let young adults and their families know. For example, now they can sign up now. We're doing our best to reach them, but we don't want anyone to miss this opportunity. And unfortunately, every year there are youth that come to us that miss the deadline, and we want to avoid that as much as possible. So we would love to send you all, and we will send you all some materials that you can distribute through your social media channels, et cetera. And then same with employers. I mean, like to Vice Chair Middleton, anyone you hear who is looking for talent, Baltimore has a lot of talent, right? And a lot of it is about, helping to make those connections and supporting those connections. Whether it's an opportunity that's appropriate for someone, in the Youthworks age frame, or someone who's more skilled, has more experience, therefore more skills. Please let us know how we can support that. Again, Youthworks, there's going to be a pool of 8,000 youth, and if you're an employer, and it doesn't have to be a private sector employer, it can be any kind of nonprofit, faith-based institution, community association. They can be terrific work sites. What matters most to young adults is the opportunity and the support network, and that can be at any kind of organization.
Definitely will do. I see Chairman Stokes might have stepped away. Councilman Cohen, did you have anything more to say? I see your video is on.
No, appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Vice President. I think just to kind of put a finer point on what you were saying in terms of the port, I think this is a real growth industry for Baltimore, as we're seeing Trade Point Atlantic in Baltimore County getting a massive infusion of energy from the county and new jobs from private industry. And I think too often, to the Vice President's point, when we go down to the port, we find that their workforce, even in the parts that are in the city, are too often people from Baltimore County and Pennsylvania, Virginia, all sorts of other places, which is really unfortunate because these are family sustaining, often union good jobs. I mean, it's not all just Amazon jobs. There's plenty of logistics, shipping, all the rest, and not to discourage Amazon jobs either, because that's a good step for some people starting out. But I would just say that I really do think that is an important growth industry, and something that we should be looking really intentionally at. I will say, Jason, and to the chairman's comments, we've been working with Patterson High School, which is right down there, to start to build a relationship and a partnership with the port administrator. I actually have a staff down there at the port right now. I was going to be there, but for this hearing. And so I think all that to be said, chairman, vice president, everything that's been said is spot on. I really think Moed, we should be like doing a deep dive and thinking about, as the port continues to grow and is a huge driver, not just of our local economy, but really like the regional and the state economy for Maryland. I think focusing some energy on creating those partnerships, I think would be a really good use of resources. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Torrance, you have any questions? Councilman Torrance?
Apologies, Mr. Chair, was trying to find the button. I had none at this time, but I just want to extend a few comments to Moed. One, recognizing from even our outreach last year of young people to get them interested in a part of Youthworks, it was great to work with your team to get them connected, but also the supports, especially with the digital divide, especially for my Black and Brown students in West Baltimore who don't have general access to internet. And I will say that the tents did work. It got a number of youth engaged but connected to your program. And I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Bullock, do you have any questions? Councilman Bullock? Okay, we'll come back to Councilman Bullock. Councilman Glover?
I'm good, sir. Thank you.
Again, one more time, Councilman Bullock. Okay. We now are going to public testimony. Ms. Marguerite, do we have any? And before we do it, for those who sign in using a computer, please use the raise hand function to indicate you wish to testify. And we'll start with you.
Harris Gray, you're unmuted. Do you wish to testify?
No, thank you.
Okay. Well, that concludes public testimony, Mr. Chair.
I want to thank Mr. Perkins and his staff for that wonderful presentation. I want to thank my colleagues and committee members and council people. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Conway, do you have any questions if he's still on here? See him? Okay. Again, I want to thank you for the presentation. This is was very informative of next steps in what your program is doing, and I'll have to thank my colleagues and the committee members for their questions and being on the call. So this concludes the public testimony. There will be no vote taken because this is a legislative oversight hearing. So I want to thank everybody for attending the hearing, and this hearing is in recess. Thank you, and everybody be safe.